Hey everybody, Justin Thomas for Ohio Sports Gazette. Doing the MACtion preview for Week 4. Decided to do things a little bit differently this week and make a video to talk about the Mid-American Conference and the upcoming games for this Saturday, which is tomorrow. Going to go ahead and start going right into it right now. The first slate of games are going to start at noon. Kent State on the road at number 19 Louisville. At 2 p.m. then is the first conference game of the season. It's Ohio. The Bobcats are traveling out to Eastern Michigan to take on the Eagles up there. That should be a good contest, considering the fact that the Eagles are off to a great start, 2-0. Bobcats 2-1, came off a big win against Kansas last weekend. So that should definitely be an interesting game to watch, especially to open up the conference season. Probably the biggest non-conference game, Toledo 3-0 right now on the road, taking on number 14 Miami. The Hurricanes are only 1-0 at the moment because of with Irma and everything. Things got rescheduled, but number 14 in the country, the Hurricanes are going to host Toledo. So this would be a big game for Toledo, big statement game to see if the Rockets can maybe pull off a win against a ranked opponent. They had a great win last weekend against Tulsa. They won on the road and beat Nevada. So Toledo definitely right now the pride of the conference. That's at 3:30. Also at 3:30 is the Miami Redhawks and the Central Michigan Chippewas. Both teams are going to be seeking that MAC opening win. This is another conference game here. The Redhawks had possibly one of the most devastating losses I've ever witnessed in person last week to the Cincinnati Bearcats as they fell for a 12th straight year to the Bearcats. Central Michigan was holding their own against Syracuse last week, but the second half the Oranges totally kind of blew them out of the water. So both teams are definitely going to want to get back on track in the right way and pick up a huge conference win to start things off. The Akron Zips on the road at Troy. That's at 6 p.m. At 7 p.m., Wagner is going to go to Kalamazoo, Western Michigan, hosting Wagner. Also at 7, the rest of these games all are at 7. Florida Atlantic is going to be coming up, taking on Buffalo, so that should be an interesting contest as well. Ball State on the road against Western Kentucky. Excuse me. The Hilltoppers going to host the Cardinals. Cardinals 2-1 on the season, and then also at 7 p.m. The Bowling Green Falcons, my alma mater, 0-3 on the season. They're going to Middle Tennessee to take on the Blue Raiders. So that's kind of an overlook on the slate of games. Now it's time to dive into some picks. What's my picks going to be for this week? Let's just go ahead and start from. We got to pick a game of the week. That's how we've kind of been doing it. There's 3 games that I think really are going to be good games, big games. Obviously, Toledo on the road at Miami. I'm going to look at the 2 conference games. I think Ohio and Eastern Michigan is going to be a good one, but my game of the week I'm going to go with Miami and Central Michigan because Miami's kind of an outside team that a lot of people thought might be able to win the East. I thought this was going to be there. They're going to finally beat Cincinnati, and they literally gifted that game to the Bearcats. Central Michigan went on the road and absolutely demolished Kansas, but then last week on the road, they didn't do so hot against Syracuse. So both teams are definitely looking for that opening conference win, and I think whoever wins, this is going to be a big statement for the season. Obviously, Miami, if they are going to contend for the East, obviously it's probably going to be Ohio, as those 2 rivals are going to be battling out for the East. Central Michigan, they do have a shot. They got Western Michigan, and then obviously Toledo right now has been doing some serious work. So this would be a big game, I think, for Central Michigan because Central Michigan cannot afford, in my opinion, to lose to an East opponent per se. If you got Toledo and Western Michigan, even Northern Illinois with that big win against Nebraska last week. In Eastern Michigan, very much improved. So I think this is a big game for Central Michigan in order for them to see if they can try and win the MAC West to get to that conference championship game in Detroit. For Miami, I think Miami, this is going to be a big statement on their own end on if they can go on the road and beat a tough Central Michigan team in order to get that first MAC win, especially because right now they're 1-2. That opening game against Marshall, they allowed 2 kickoff returns and a pick 6, and they only lost by 5, I believe. And then last week at home, they lost to Cincinnati basically because they gifted the Bearcats that game, especially with the pick 6 there at the end. So I think this is going to be a big statement game for Miami to see if they can get back on track and get things going for their season. Um, for this game, I think um, I think it's going to be a good game. But for my pick for this one, I think I'm going to have to take the Chippewas at home. Um, I think that this is going to be a really good game back and forth, but I think some injuries with Miami has kind of hurt them, especially last week against Cincinnati. And I think this might be a game that the Chippewas will win. Now, Miami obviously is not going to be out of it. For the conference, they're just going to have a lot of work to do, especially with Ohio there. Going on now with the rest of the conference games. Kent State at Louisville. Louisville's gonna roll on that one. Ohio and Eastern Michigan. That's gonna be a good game as well. I think the Bobcats and their experience, is going to lend some aid, and I think that that Ohio is going to go up there to Ypsilanti and get the conference win. I think Eastern Michigan is going to battle them. I think they're going to play really good, but I think in the end Ohio will get the win. Toledo at Miami. This is a very interesting game, simply because Toledo is on a roll. They're 3-0. Miami has not been able to really play those games because of the Hurricane Irma. They're only 1-0. They haven't got as much playtime, game experience. So this is definitely going to be a very interesting one. I think in the end that Miami will probably pull it out. So I'm gonna I really want to I really do like the Toledo to maybe make some noise here. But I think Miami is going to pull it out in the end. Akron at Troy, very interesting game. Troy's 2-1, Akron's 1-2. I think in the end, I think Troy's going to win this game. Western Michigan versus Wagner. Western Michigan should handle them fine. Florida Atlantic at Buffalo, another kind of intriguing matchup. I think Florida Atlantic has kind of improved, especially with Lane Kiffin being there as their head coach. I think the Owls are going to go up to Buffalo and get a win. Ball State at Western Kentucky. Um, Western Kentucky, I think, will edge out the Cardinals in that one and get the win. And then Bowling Green at Middle Tennessee. I think Middle Tennessee is going to handle the Falcons there. So once again, that's my kind of MAC preview for the weekend with some picks there. So we'll see how that goes. Stay tuned. We're gonna probably do the video format much in the coming weeks as we give you a good look preview and the recap of MACtion each week here on Ohio Sports Gazette.